I'm Lee Lance, and I'm one of the co-founders of ecobot. We're building software for the environmental regulatory industry. Every developed country around the world has environmental regulations in place in order to protect their natural resources. One example of this in the US is before every major commercial construction project, you have to assess whether or not it's going to affect streams and wetlands. So companies are hired that come in. These companies are largely made up of environmental scientists, and what they do is they come to the location and they collect data from a lot of different points on this location. They assemble this into these reports and they file an analysis document with the regulatory agency. This is a very inefficient pen and paper process, and as you can see from these pictures, this is my co-founder Jeremy, who works in the industry and is an environmental scientist who collects data and provides these reports. These are not always great locations to bring clipboards full of paper. This is a 50-year-old industry and it's never been disrupted. It's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of repetitive touching of the same data on this paperwork. So you go in the field, you collect the data, you've got to transcribe that data onto these forms, you've got to fill out these analysis documents. We're going to solve this problem by transforming this pen and paper industry into a cloud-driven model of efficiency. We believe that people don't buy what you make, they buy why you make it. If you're familiar with Simon Sinek, you know what I'm talking about here. We also believe that if you share why with your target customer, you're going to build a better product, which we do. We're going to revolutionize the environmental industry by improving scientists' ability to preserve the planet. And we're going to do this by building software, but really what we're doing is we're generating time. These are two examples of a week in the life of an environmental scientist before ecobot and after ecobot. So what we're doing is we're creating massive project efficiency, eliminating the part of the job of our target customer, or at least the end user, that they really don't like. It's that busy work. And we're going to do this by working with their existing workflow and crafting technology around that. Rather than starting with software and trying to change the way they work, they work now. We can do that because of our insider. It's going to help us with swifter market adoption and greater retention. We're going to sell ecobot as a SaaS model, priced not by seat licenses, but by volume of work. It's common in the industry when a large project comes along, they need to bring in additional labor, and we don't want that to be an obstacle to using ecobot. So it's by the volume of work that's coming through. Heavily targeted at enterprise sales. Ecobot is the only industry-specific comprehensive solution. There are a lot of companies that are providing some kind of software for data collection to go into a document. So it helps validate the space. But there's a lot of work involved, whether that's the need of these companies to have an IT department come in and make database connections and things like that. There's no turnkey solution that's wrapped around the industry. In addition to being the first mover in the space, some of our other competitors' barriers to entry are in the industry. Every role is filled in order to get this product to market, version 1, with over 15 years of experience each. And then our methodology, our agile scrum lean manufacturing approach is going to keep us ahead of any competitors that do come into the space. So our team, everybody is, we all own our own businesses, we're all entrepreneurs already, and we're going to come together to build a successful business. Our financial overview, if you look at the top line, it shows how many SaaS subscriptions we need in order to get to 23 million in net revenue by year 6. And the stripes here at the bottom are what we're going to be working on. We're starting with US-based streams and wetlands. Over about half of the environmental regulatory space is spent on water and water-related services. And then eventually moving out to this $500 billion global industry. Right here in the middle, one of our defensible pieces of intellectual property that we're going to be creating is the out-licensing of aggregate data. So as ecobot customers use the software, we're going to be collecting this data and building the first ever international database of highly specific environmental scientific data, writing some algorithms against that to create some predictive data as well. The use of proceeds, the money that we're raising about $1 million total. We're currently in a $300,000 seed round. We're going to use this to validate the market by going deeper into the marketplace with customers, getting to version 1, and then eventually beyond that to product 2 and into the global market. Our go-to-market plan over the next few months, we have an internal MVP that we've released and done a cycle on with some of our scientific advisors and Jeremy internally. We're making revisions to that, and we've got monthly drops of our MVP scheduled as we continue to engage with customers and roll out eventually by the end of the year 100 customers we believe that will provide enough value to that they'll be willing to pay to access ecobot. So, and again, we're raising a $300,000 round, which will give us 6 months of runway specifically for market validation. And that market validation is what we need in order to take the next step and have conversations with VC firms.
Thank you.
Lee, thank you very much. It's obviously a valuable product for the world, so congratulations on getting a passion into that.
Sure.
Who are your buyers? Are they independent contractors who are going out doing these regulatory evaluations, or are they agencies for state and federal government? Who makes the buying decision?
Yeah, sure. So the driver of the spend in the space is mostly private industry, but it is also some governmental regulations, or like you're putting a highway through, they may be a buyer. The user of ecobot, the customer, is everything from large enterprises with thousands of employees that provide assessments in every one of the categories, down to middle-sized businesses of maybe 20, 50 people and individual consultants. So it spans that entire spectrum.
The evaluators of the reports that are generated are probably more the regulatory agencies.
That's correct. Yep.
Will this product ease the burden of them for evaluation and speed up the time to decision making? I guess would be a good way.
Yeah. Right now, our target is the same way that the environmental regulatory agencies don't know what kind of pen you use to sign your document. They won't know ecobot has been involved. We do believe the day will come in the future when they have a data requirement. Right now what they do is you send them a PDF, and they take this PDF and they give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down on whether or not mitigation is required, and then they shred it. There's no data. So we think that when that does happen, when they do say, okay, now send us a data feed of your analysis, we'll be ahead of the curve, we'll be ready to catch that data, and then can take on the regulatory agencies as customers as well.
Nice job explaining your product. So I'll stick with the customer-oriented questions for the moment. Why, so you have your early market plan, and you have your target customers. How do you know that these customers are for real and that your early market plan can be achieved?
Sure, it's a great question. We have a small board of 3 advisors. 2 of them are scientists in the industry. They're decision makers at companies that would buy ecobot. We've also had conversations with formal conversations with 3 other prospective customers in different states. And then of course Jeremy, my co-founder, who works within the industry and has a lot of connections. It's a pervasive problem in the industry, this pen and paper, the inefficiencies. And when we have these early conversations with customers, they say, I want as early access as I can. I don't care what it costs. Our value proposition with our pricing is going to give our customers about a 10 times return on their investment as far as what they're saving. And when we have those conversations with these customers, they're very responsive and very interested in what we have to say.
So, and you've had these conversations with these 4 customers over what time period, and what else have they told you?
Over the last year, heavily weighted towards the last 6 months. They've been very high-level conversations. We've done some demos, but because we're making so many changes to our first MVP, we're not quite ready for that. Our next step is to take the second version of our MVP, make it an installable app that they can actually try themselves hands-on, and we're going to use that to try to generate some LOIs, some letters of intent with customers for a dual purpose of continuing that specific conversation, not just I'd like to use this, but I'd like to give you my money for this, hopefully eventually turning those into contracts, and then having something to show to investors as well to validate that market. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and did you say how much money you're raising?
We're raising $300,000 in our first round with the specific goal of demonstrating market traction to VCs.
Question. And what do you put at your pre-money valuation at for $300,000?
2.5.
Yeah, great job. Very interesting concept. Kind of pivoting off of the customers for a second and getting a little bit more into traction. Can you help us understand, you talked about kind of early development, getting ready to launch your MVP, but more along the lines of testing the value proposition with your target customer set. Can you kind of walk us through a little bit where you're at with that, what you guys have done over the last 6 months or so?
Yeah, so our very high level conversations generally, would it be worth $1,000 a month if you're doing a volume of 25 data points or more a month to have something. So because we don't have a hardware requirement, any specific new thing that they have to bring to the field. There's no equipment. It's technology they already have in their pocket. So when we talk about that, we talk about a monthly commitment of about $1,000 in order to alleviate this problem. They say, yeah, absolutely, that's totally worth it. And that's as far as we've gone with that. When we get into the next stage, when we have something that they can put on their own phones and test, and we get those letters of intent, the letters of intent will have pricing on it, so that when we deliver this product, this is what we're planning to charge, and then they're going to say back to us, yeah, I'd pay that for that. So when we do those letters of intent, we're going to play with those numbers a little bit, depending on the customer, to kind of see where we hit some ceiling with limits on what they'd be willing to spend. So we've got a pretty good idea of shooting for a 10x return on their investment, on the customer's investment on time, is how we've done our price model. And then we need to validate with those customers to make sure that's going to work.
So one recommendation would be on your value.
Yeah.
You're talking about your value proposition. You indicate that there's a 40% efficiency there.
Right.
That can be gained in time, and that's really the currency that you guys are you're going to be actively promoting. My suggestion would be to try to put a value on that.
Okay.
So you can say, what does 40% equal? Not in time. That would be interesting, but translate that to kind of FTE dollars, right?
Mm-hmm, definitely.
For a typical organization, they're investing X in this process. A process that costs X amount of dollars, we can do it for Y, that's a 10X savings or something along those lines, 40% savings, right?
I totally agree.
Because I think that really helps to define, it does two things. One, it kind of validates the problem. The problem is significant, there's scale there, but then it also kind of sets it up for getting deeper into the rest of the information in terms of how you're going to make money, your business model, and so forth.
Great, good feedback, thanks.
One of my concerns, Lee, in what you're doing would be who your competitors are or could be, and what are the barriers to entry from them, because what you're creating is a way of automating form creation and submission. And if you have competitors out there are in other industries that do the same thing,
sure, you
could easily be replaced by a bigger player in the industry who has more marketing clout. So what are the barriers to entry and with your competitors?
Sure. I think that where maybe another software firm may come in to try to build this, the specific connections that we have through Jeremy, he's very active and recognized in the industry. We've got a customer list pulled together of a couple hundred specific individuals across the country that Jeremy already has a relationship with, that we're gonna leverage to speed into market. I think that some competition is always healthy because it raises the awareness of the need, because we're replacing a process. I think our greatest competitor is the existing process. So I think that while there are not tremendous barriers to other people coming in and doing what we're doing, I think the way that we're doing it and the way that we're executing it are going to keep us ahead of the curve.
First to market will be your biggest advantage.
Yeah, and then related, I mentioned one defensible intellectual property point when we're dealing with the database that we're going to assemble. We also believe, and we're having some casual early conversations with patent attorneys to see if the process around collecting data in the field, and not just collecting it, but then normalizing multiple scientists into one report, and then the methodology that we're using to create the analysis document, there may be an opportunity for 2 additional intellectual property components to ecobot that could give us some of that defensibility against customers.
Okay, so you seem like a very thoughtful guy and a well thought out strategy. My recommendation in the pitch is that this is a very standard entrepreneurial pitch that you're going through, and in this case, with only having 5 minutes, it was maybe 15 minutes of material.
Yeah.
So maybe picking out the things that are really can grab a group of people, and not trying to cover it all. But even more importantly, that there's a story that you haven't told. You've kind of gone through all the mechanics with a customer that could help people really relate to what you're talking about, and you just breeze through your team. Is there a story about your team members, how you came together, or something that could help make you more memorable than the standard pitch?
Great.